The votes are in, it's time to see what this town is meant to be. Together strong we'll cast our say, build tomorrow from today. Side by side we make the call, every voice it counts them all. A team of hearts with plans to share, for every soul we're standing there. It's in the ballot, it's in our hands. Together we rise and take a stand. For every dream, for every need, community spirit is our creed. The vote is here to pave the way, working hard both night and day, delivering hope, delivering dreams. We are the ones who fuel the streams. Every corner, every street, we bring the change that makes us meet. Hand in hand we hold the flame, together we'll make a lasting name. It's in the ballot, it's in our hands. Together we rise and take a stand. For every dream, for every need, community spirit is our creed. The vote is here to pave the way, working hard both night and day, delivering hope, delivering dreams. We are the ones to fuel the streams. Every corner, every street, we bring the change that makes us meet. Hand in hand we...
Okay, and welcome to today's It's in the Ballot, and I think I will just hide our remote editor, which is Nick, who's going to be doing the show. But we're here today with the Waka Uru. Is that how you say the ward name? Correct me if I say it wrong.
Correct.
Okay, for the Western Bay of Plenty District Council, we've got Carlton and Darlene here, and fingers crossed Suare's one of these people who comes literally running across onto the stage and magically appears on Restream as we speak. How are you both going this evening?
Well, I know Darlene's probably like myself, very busy people. The marae and tangis, huis, yeah. All
So
day,
definitely pumping in probably the equivalent of two full-time jobs to make everything work.
it's about how it is.
Okay, hey, okay. Who would like to kick off first with the 1 minute opening statement of why they should receive the tick for the Waka Uru Award?
Ladies first.
But I'm last.
Only by alphabetical order.
Okay. So what did you ask me?
A 1 minute opening statement.
Okay. So I'm passionate about our people and our land and our waters and the community. I want to ensure that whānau voices are heard and are included in the decision making that will help to shape our shared future. I promise, I will do my best to champion the protection of our environment, working alongside Hapua Niwi, supported in manaakitanga, kaitiakitanga and kotahitanga. And my why is, why am I standing? I'm standing because I want to support decisions that work for both mana whenua and mana tangata, or actually it's other ethnic communities. Not just for now. I guess the term I should use is tangata tiriti, now and for the generations to come. So, yeah, Tēnā tātou, ko Darlene Dinsdale hai.
Kia ora,
Okay. Carlton.
Always the hardest question to answer. You've got to talk about yourself. Yeah, I'm locally raised from Tipuna, Tauranga. Raised our 6 children here, 13 mokopuna, 12 of which have whakapapa to the Eastern Bay through Te Arawa. So I've had a life of, my whole career has been in the arena of representing Māori at a political level, local government level, grassroots level, protecting and finding avenues to express our rights and interests under the treaty, to put our best foot forward as far as legislation provides for Māori. Why did I decide to put my name into the Māori ward seat? I've had a long career working alongside local government representing tangata whenua. In a whole lot of ways, I, like Darling, member of the Māori forums at local councils. I chaired the Māori forum for almost a decade. And because a number of our people have an expectation that the likes of us put our names forward, and I definitely wanted to take on board the challenge, knowing that full well that there's a referendum on the ward. My first aim is to, if I get in, is to prove the value of the seat. Again, show the value of having a treaty partner at the table, at the decision-making end. Yeah, it's a challenge, but it's not one that I'm afraid of. And yeah, just look forward to the rest of the campaign and the results. But I'm there for, I'm a grassroots person as well, environmentalist, conservationist, a lot to do in biosecurity, and I've just got a passion to represent the people on the ground. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Okay, so looks like Soiree hasn't jumped in yet. When she jumps in, we'll get her opening statement out of the way. So let's get to the box questions now, because we've only got 2 candidates here at the moment, and we will continue it if we follow up to 3 candidates. We're just going to get you each to pick a box number, and every candidate answers the box number. Are we happy with that?
Mm-hmm.
And it saves having to use button cards and all that sort of thing, because with 2 candidates, 2 button cards don't last that long. Darlene, what box number between 1 and 28? And you can use Te Reo Māori or English for the box numbers. Oh, no, hold on a moment. Soiree has just joined.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Before we get to the box numbers, can we get your opening statement, please?
Me, cool, of course. Kia ora, talofa lava. Ko Soiree Brau tēnei, huri whakaheke no te rohe o Tauranga Moana, specifically Piridako. I live in Whakamarama, and I am a proud whenua owner to the Burrell dynasty of Ross Road, and we have been in the area for 125 years. Our homestead was built in 1900, and we still live in that house today. I am a research and evaluation consultant, and I run my own business, writing technical reports for people about what works, what doesn't, for whom and in what ways. And I regularly stand in local council because I believe in the responsibility and obligation to represent the whakapapa. Kia ora.
Okay, thank you for that, and great to see you again. I think, I've lost count. It's the 3rd election we've crossed paths.
Can I do mine again? because I answered a question. I didn't actually introduce myself.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Yes, yes. No, that's fine. I'm happy for that.
Aroa
Cameron.
mai. Tēnā tātou katoa. Nei waku ki a tō e piri nei I taku toto te arawa, I taku toto takitumu, I taku toto mātātua. He wahine ai tū māro, taku tū mahaki hei kauaka mo te wai, mo te whenua, mo te tangata mo ngā uri whakaheke. I tipu ake au, I raro I ngā maunga, poroporo ake o Rangiru, o Otawa, o Mawao. Tēnā tātou, ko Darlington Stawahau. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Okay, so let's get to the box questions. So we've got boxes between number 1 and 28, or between Tahi and Roatakoma Wadu. And you can pick what box numbers you want, and then we'll answer the question. Now we're going to we'll go one candidate picks box number, all 3 candidates answer the box number, because it saves having to go on using button cards. And we'll do that until 8 o'clock, and then we'll get ready for hard-hitting questions. How does that sound?
Great.
Kapai.
Okay. Carlton, no, Darlene, you're meant to start off. What box number?
Yeah, but when on the voting papers it goes Carlton Bidwa, so nah,
Don't worry, we like to...
Te mawha,
but
te
Carlton
mawha,
insisted on...
te mawha.
Okay. So we've got AA for AA batteries. Because I can't think of anything else that suits it. Many residents feel disconnected from council decision making. How will you improve transparency and community engagement?
Right. Great question. Okay, for me, to represent our people, we need that. That is one of the greatest issues that Western Bay of Plenty is currently in, and it is all to do with community engagement. And we know that there has been a huge issue with local waters done well, and the problem appeared to have been the engagement with the affected parties. So we will also be aware that not a lot of engagement happened. It was always reactive, and our people were disappointed because obviously council were aware. So to improve it, we need to ensure that processes are followed. And as iwi and hapu are Māori, we have principles of how we engage and consult on a range of issues. We follow our tikanga and our kawa, and making those part of our processes with dealing with engagement and consultation will help to break those barriers. That's my opinion, and it needs to be done because local water's done well. It just highlighted a lot of issues that our governors of the day didn't handle very well, or didn't make the decisions. They weren't listening to the people. And in our case, as iwi and hapu, yeah, they didn't listen. That their final decision was not the advice given by iwi and hapu.
Okay, Carlton.
I think it's easy to get trapped into a representative role where you lose sight of the fact that the people put you there. And I suppose for councils like ours, where they have a combined tenure of 50 years being around the table between them, I think sometimes they lose sight of the fact of who put them there, and sit inside the square box of only consulting with the public or with their communities when legislation requires. I've never lost sight of that fact. I've been in multiple representative roles for our people, and I have an open door policy, always open to be scrutinised by my people about my representation. I like the Māori model of doing it. Come and have a cup of tea. Let's hold a hui at the marae. I engage with the community on the ground all day, every day, whether it's out helping out with pest control, biosecurity issues, te ao Māori issues. I think you just maintain an open door policy, and you. I'd much rather be out there engaging with our people than sitting around the council table every day. I'll tell you that. In a terms of reference sort of situation, our people are, I know it's lucky enough to have things like Māori forums to engage directly with the council. But I think how do you enhance that even better is to, in the old days, we used to ensure that we had some of those meetings on a marae so that the haukainga, the people could come to an open meeting, and just create open spaces for people to come and directly engage. And there's nothing stopping a council from doing that. So just create the opportunity for the people to engage.
Okay, Soiree.
Oh, kia ora, Sam. So I would actually take a very deliberate and purposeful process to address this issue of residents feeling disconnected, specifically around documenting and describing what feedback had been received from whom, what date and what time. So whilst you don't have the ability to dig into operations in a governance role, you do have, by virtue of your role, you do have a responsibility to act with integrity and competence to check. So your job in governance is to soundboard out where and when information was collected. What did it say? Where were the rainbows and the whirlpools in that particular situation, so that you can understand and make the best decision on the evidence that you've been given. So when you look at the culture of governance, it really rests on the culture of the people around the table. So when people are saying residents feel disconnected, they feel disconnected because they don't feel that their views are being stewarded into the decision. And again, my background as a person who engages with communities regularly to write technical reports, I'd feel very at home making a comment and making an honest assessment of the transparency and the level of community engagement that was had.
Okay, Kelton, what box number?
Box number Rima.
Okay, we got I for India. That's A M E F G H I. Yeah, making sure that I get the right numbers on there and then go back to my other sheet to correlate to make sure the questions line up, just because I can't see the letters on Restream on my cell phone. Okay, got I. What role do you see Māori wards playing in lifting overall equity and inclusion in local government?
That's always been a hard job for our people. Some of us have been lucky enough to traverse that ground. It's not my first rodeo tackling those issues, but I think it's quite evident across the country at the moment The role of the Māori ward or Māori councillor being adding that value around the table. There's still a lack of understanding of what the treaty actually means. There's still a lack of understanding around the treaty principles. And I think the first role, because of the political climate, is to dispel, to show the value of the seat, express the value of the seat, and expel this mythology that it's just a special preference, and that it's a race-based decision to have a Māori ward. It's a rights-based decision, which is a derivative of the treaty principles and legislation. It's an option that councils have always had under the Local Government Act to provide a Māori ward, and I think it simply adds value around the table, as you would have heard if you were to question your councillors and mayors from all three councils. It add value around the table, and that's the job we have to do. Māori are a unique community. We enjoy living as Māori. So there is a difference in society, and our job is to protect that, protect the right for Māori to live as a unique community wherever they reside, whether that's rural or residential or in the city. So yeah, I think the first job is to add value to the seat and dispel the myth that it's only there as some sort of special privilege. It's a right. So being the winning the right to represent Māori is a big job, and you've got to add value to the seat.
Soiree. Why do I keep doing that?
Thanks, Sam. That's a great question. So I attended the meet in Katikati last week with Winston, the Right Honourable Winston Peters, who was giving a kōrero about this, obviously in a particular angle different to mine. And my question to Winston was, what if Māori wards were the perfect storm to lifting voter participation and improving responsible leadership within local council? So this question really is about the role that Māori wards can have in that, but it's also about where and how the hows and the what's of equity and inclusion within the Westminster model. So iwis are moving into different spaces. Iwis have come a long way. For example, our own iwi, my own iwi, has a relationship in place with the local government, so they now have to shift and move and iron out their statutory obligations one-on-one, our entity to theirs, to discuss what that looks like. But I think definitely agree with all of Carlton's points, because it's pertinent to Te Tiriti, but also to the statutory obligations that backbone the council. And you just need to look at that and understand what you need in that position is a representative of the people who will be able to fight for those things, and fight in a way that finds complementary ways to socialise and weave into the strengths that Māori views and perspectives can play in and across the council roles and responsibilities.
Okay, and Darlene. Well, now I keep doing this. I need to figure out a way that I stop tuning down everyone's volumes as I'm trying to full screen use all.
It's all right.
Ready
Ready
when
for
you
me
are.
now? Okay, thank you. Māori wards are important. They will definitely lift the overall equity, and it's important to be included in local government for the very reasons that Sarari and Colton have already expressed. For me, it's a matter of co-governance, and to be able to provide that strong governance and efficient and effective services, at taking into consideration and understanding the communities themselves. Te tiriti is very important in this, and so are the principles of natural justice. I guess the challenge will be ensuring that our colleagues, the council, LERS, they understand tiriti and the role that iwi and hapu see. There appears to be some misalignment in where the tiriti settlements sit in terms of this hierarchy of council. So when you consider that, it's going to be difficult, but it would be a great challenge for us all. Because one of the greatest things is to ensure that our iwi and hapu, they receive the best value of service, and by implementing and delivering great plans will be a help along the four po that we live by as iwi and as communities, the social, cultural, environmental and economic progress across the Waka Kaiuru. So, yeah, that's my opinion.
No problem. Soiree, what box number?
5.
Okay.
Sorry, it's my dog's dinner time.
No problem.
It's
okay,
right.
we've got. So the fun one is C for Charlie. How will you ensure decisions truly reflect the principles of Te Tiriti or Waitangi, protect Māori representation under reforms, and give the Waka Oro district-wide Māori Board real influence in decision making?
I think the way to do that meaningfully would be to curate and create a process within the within the orders of council where you can actually weight where that action or where that decision sits, whether it sits under Article 1, 2, or 3 or 4. I think that's the problem when we come to giving effect to Te Tiriti. We don't actually have the mechanisms within the documenting process or the protocols of council. So within the, there's wriggle room and standing orders, but there's not really. But I would actually, as a member of that table, be committed to saying, okay, so this decision here gives effect to what principle of the treaty, and just record it. We record everything else. We record what people say. We record what the council has said. Surely we can do the same for the value that it adds to Te Tiriti. Protect Māori representation under reforms. So in a referendum, that's not actually under your control. All you can do is raise awareness about the benefit of the water, I suppose. And again, in terms of real influence and decision making, it's a numbers game, Sam. There's 10 of you, and you got to get some mates at the table to get things across the line. But all leaders know you make trade-offs, and you make trade-offs that benefit your people overall and their future. So I'd just be aware of the way that I traded off decisions and made decisions to have real impact for the people that I represent.
Okay, Darlene.
Okay. For me, the principles of tiriti or Waitangi, the a mechanism to protect Māori representation is also imperative. To ensure that council decisions meet the assessment criteria of Te Ao Māori as well, along those 5 akuna that we live under. But the real influence in the decision making as a candidate for Te Waka Kaiuru would be the wise counsel received by our koike and kaumātua. Their counsel is important in this when dealing with these decisions that we're going to be asked to make, and also the voice of rangatahi. So for me, te tiriti is very important, and how we represent that will be how we act on the advice that's given to us. The real influence there for me in the decision making would be that wise counsel received by our forums, by our koike, by the people of the marae and our rangatahi. Kia ora.
Okay, Kelton.
Same question.
Yeah, same question. Yep.
On the screen there. Well, first of all, I think you got to be knowledgeable about the principles of te tiriti, and be, in this case, protection, partnership, and participation. And I think the fact that our council have previously supported to have a Māori ward is an expression of just that. And us, I know for myself and Darling, we fought long and hard to establish the ward. And I think the question is a continuation of that. We believe in the principles, but we also believe in the rights and interests under the treaty that our tupuna were guaranteed on our behalf. So I think a lot of it's about pursuing that. We may only have 3 years to actually add value to that very question. So you need a plan. I have a few things up my sleeve that I know will work in protecting Māori rights and interests in the face of these reforms, especially the RMA Built Environment Act and the repeals that go along with the reforms. And it's about enshrining those rights and interests in other mechanisms that are available to us. And I think there's a few options there that the communities and people and politicians that don't support Māori seat at the table might not know too much about. I don't want to say too much. I'm not a guy that makes promises, but I'm quite confident that we have some other mechanisms to combat these reforms and that type of political rhetoric.
Okay, Darlene, what's the next box?
Yes. Te kaumā lima.
Perfect. The old driver's license age. Okay, we got.
When I got my license.
Okay, we got B for Bravo. How will you represent community interests, particularly when they differ from your own position or when the council is not in support of them?
Okay. I would represent the community interests and iwi and hapu interests This is an everyday occurrence for myself, for Sarari and Carlton. We deal with this on a daily, this type of question. For me, though, I was once given some really wise advice by my tuakana Te Kipa, Marsh, and it sort of resonates really strongly with me in terms of this question. So he always said that their stories are their stories and our stories are our stories, respectfully, though. And I would ensure that the voice and interests of all the community that we represent is provided for. And I would be led also by their direction in terms of ensuring that I advocate well for the interests of all the communities.
Okay, Carlton.
Yeah, again, that's not an easy thing to achieve. And, one side of being in a Māori ward seat that a lot of people don't think about is once you enter council, you have a liability to provide for the whole community, not just your Māori community. But it's a really difficult job. You've got to pick your battles wisely. But, if you find yourself in opposition to an issue that your own community, or whether that be the wider community or your own Māori community, first of all, you've got to question yourself. Why are you in opposition to the community you represent? And I think that having the ability to actually canvass your own community, know your own community well, and that's not just the Māori community, because as I said, you have a liability once you're into council to think about the wider community. But know your community well, know their issues well, know your people well, and you'll lessen the chance that you're in opposition to your community views. Then taking that back to the council table, where you might not be supported by your fellow councillors on those community views or our people's views. Again, it's not my first rodeo at all. When we find ourselves with local government, with central government, people that have had a career representation 90% of the time in that position. But I've got a reputation and a history of achieving community Māori for Māori issues and delivering. And I think you just got to have that ability to influence. I believe I have that ability. I know I have a track record of achieving it. And I suppose it's a technique. I think Sware talked about delivering our message in a certain way. And unfortunately, yes, we have to become skilled at doing that with local government, central government, or any other Crown agency. We've always been put on the back foot, but yeah, that's part of the challenge. And I think you need to develop your own rapport and your own skill set if you want to actually make achievements for your people you're representing.
Okay, Sware.
Yeah, again, echoing the sentiments of the other wonderful candidates, when it comes to representing interests that differ from my own in governance, I've always relied on one, skill sets, and I have a wide range of skill sets, but specifically, you need strategies when this is the particular situation you're addressing. It's like strategies for active listening, so whakarongo, so make sure you listen and understand what that other interest is. I think we tend as humans to see them as combative interests, but that's not necessarily true. And it's not until after I've listened and I've learned that I can understand what those interests are. So whakarongo. And then the other one, other sets of skills around like empathy or being open-minded about what the issue is. So again, from raising my own knowledge and awareness of what the issue is for that other party or that other community, I can then make sure that I understand and am completely transparent about what it is that I'm advocating. So from whakarongo, we can move into whakamana, and I can whakamana what their interest is at the table. I'll also double down on that and say that's why it's important for me as the Māori Ward candidate, as the Māori Ward councillor, to build in a system where we are recording where Māori interests are served and at what level and in what alignment with what principle of the treaty, because until you're able to get a baseline of that, none of those councillors can actually prove effectiveness for the things that they stand and campaign on, because they've got no baseline, they've got no understanding of what actual impact they're having. And in my background as an evaluator, as someone who determines merit, value and worth all day, every day, I have absolutely no problem knowing that I would do this task skillfully and ensure that interests were represented and upheld in the democratic way.
Okay, Kelton, what box number?
Te Whā.
I'm sorry, that one's been
Ko
taken, but you got Te Kaumātoru or Te Kaumā...
Rima. Te Kaumā Rima.
No, Rima's been taken, or no, that's
Te Kaumātoru.
it's all right. The current driver's license age, as we call it. Okay, so we've got O for what do you call it, a portiki, and just so I can get onto here. Okay, what is your position on balancing economic development with protecting taonga species and multicultural landscapes?
Again, unfortunately, we're in a space and time where we have a coalition government that does not care for this. Again, I have been around the seats of the Department of Conservation, MPI, EPA for a very long time. I have always championed environmental conservation issues. Been privileged enough to be pivotal in resourcing our people with Jobs for Nature resource handed down by the Crown. So that's a juxtaposition, I suppose, that I've had a lot of experience in, and it's, yes, we support economic growth, but it's got to be done in a way that protects the lives, protects our culture, and protects what I call a cultural economy. And it's something that a lot of people hasn't been researched well what that actually is. For non-Māori, it's ecosystem services, including the part humans play in that. So we have a dollar economy that we all live by, I suppose, and need in certain ways, but we also have a cultural economy where we're reliant on a subsistent existence with the environment. So I just see it as a two-way road. Everything you do toward protecting our economic growth, both for the wider committee, the region, Port of Tauranga is a good example. You have to have those checks and balances that you're not creating an over imbalance or an impact on the environment or on culture and sites of significance along that journey. And that's about protecting your cultural economy.
Okay, Soiree.
You're on mute.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well.
Sorry. I was just wanting to anchor that in economies, and there are always multiple economies, as Carlton pointed out too, there are communities that drive the economy. There are populations of people and things that are affected in any economy, and I think it's about if you can balance the actions on both points or multiple points in an inclusive and sustainable way, then I think you can find a balance. Again, leadership requires trade-offs, and I think that has to be a deliberate process. And I think it's really important to, again, not pit them as combative concepts, but actually complementary concepts. So how do we protect the economic gains that can be had from our environments? Because I think we also tend to put the environment as one kind of singular entity, but there are environments, micro, macro, meso level environments that actually exist all together, all at the same time. So I think it's really important to let the leaders lead and let the experts expert, but never forget that there's a community of people under those people that are directly impacted by the decisions that you make. So whareroa, for example, Ngāti Kuku, amazing mahi and pono ana ki te kaupapa, you know, of ensuring that the port doesn't do any more harm to their home. So again, I would advocate for balanced information, knowledge and awareness that also ensures the community are always, and I mean always, a part of the process.
Okay, Darlene.
Yes. So I support all that Sarari and Carlton have said in terms of economic development and the balancing and protecting of our taonga species and our Māori cultural landscapes. As iwi and hapu and a lot of tangata tiriti in our communities, we have these intrinsic relationships with all of our taonga species and our cultural landscapes. The balance of the economic and that development, I guess, for us, would be to be able to change, well, influencing change, you know, through policies, significant policies, especially around our sites of significance and our taonga species and the protection of them. So, yeah, it's just a really going to be a challenge to ensure that we, like Sarari said, get gains in relationships, because it's going to be a hard job in the balancing of that economics.
Okay, Soiree, what box number?
Any even number, bro. Any evens. I'm about the evens.
Money or the bag?
Yin or yang. Yeah.
The money or the bag?
Yin and yang, even. If there's no even, then obviously a number. Because I can't even see the numbers here. But
Oh, no, fair. Well, they're on the sheet here. But yes, I know what you mean. So should we go for Wadu as an 8?
Awesome. Perfect. It's very good for Chinese community number 8.
Okay, we've got now it's F for Foxtrot. Now this is going to be fun. There we are. Always fun having to count on the alphabet or the number of slides across to work out what number's what. Okay, F for Foxtrot. How would you advocate for culturally responsive council services for whānau and tamariki?
Me?
Yes.
Me? Okay, kapai. I would advocate the same way I advocate in my role. I'd do a review of the services. I'd ask the service user how they found the service to date from this period to that period. Then I'd put that together in a report, and I'd make some recommendations to improve the quality of delivery, service delivery. Because again, I'm a big believer, if you create the right process, you'll get the outcome. The outcome will take care of itself. So when it comes to advocacy, I'm really anchored and tethered to making sure that I put the service user's perspective there and not my own. So I'm not going to advocate for something or someone or a process that I don't actually understand or have a lived experience of. I'm going to go to those people who engage with council services. I'm going to ask them to tell me what works, what doesn't, and then I'll write it up, put it in a slide deck, and send it in.
Okay, Darlene.
Okay. I have had experience advocating for our whānau and our rangatahi in terms of council services in the past. And I guess just as an example, more recently it was unmaintained Māori roadways. And so during that review, it was successful. I advocated on behalf of our marae, one that was, and it's Ngātikuri. And if you've been to Te Puke and Macmeeking Road, you would know that you would have to follow this dusty road. And weather patterns that we've had recently, the road becomes really unsafe. So council have agreed that they will seal that road to our marae and our kohanga reo. So that was a win-win. And it was basically arriving at a hapu hui, hearing the concerns of the people, and then going to council and working with council and the people. We've also done it for other services that have benefited our families and our hapu. So I wouldn't change the way that I advocate for our communities with council.
Okay, Carlton.
I think the question, how will you advocate for culturally responsive council services for whānau and tamariki? I'm not too sure how much the council understands that service. It's not a service that comes up around the table that much. That type of service is usually, as the other two have alluded to, championed by the communities. The need for safe spaces for our children to play in, parks and reserves, the need to protect places like regional parks, like our beautiful maunga in the picture behind me, and ensuring that it's culturally safe, not only for our own people, but for any people to go to our maunga, for our children to learn their history, learn about the environment, to learn about our taonga, and actually interact with each other in a culturally safe way. That's actually a service that the council can provide in different ways and contribute to, but it's usually about championing that, as the other two have said, from a community perspective, or iwi hapu perspective, or marae whānau perspective. And I, like the others, have been involved in that type of thing, championing local. We're lucky enough to have had a new park for our kids installed at the rugby field here in Te Puna. But I think that type of thing is important for all Māori communities, to protect our tamariki and our mokopuna. And likewise, equally so, we're protecting our ngāhere, and that transfer of knowledge, And quite often there's a teaching that goes along with all of that. When you're championing those types of issues at the council table, you're quite often teaching the councils around those sites of significance what's safe for our tamariki, our mokopuna, why we want a playground that features these types of equipment or this type of sport or culturally sensitive interpretation. Yeah, so it's about being in tune, again, about being in tune with the community you represent, championing those issues, which I suppose politicians love to talk about mokopuna decisions. Well, there's a great example right there. Creating culturally safe places for our tamariki.
Okay, Darlene, what box number?
Namarua.
Okay, we got J for Juliet. Yeah, where is it? Yeah, it's there. Okay. Rates have increased significantly in the last 3 years. What will you do to ensure affordability for ratepayers while still funding essential services?
That's a difficult question. I can't make any promises about rates rises or rates staying the same. However, I would advocate strongly that affordability for ratepayers maintained. Essential services, they need to happen. So it's more a matter of ensuring that the increases aren't through wants, they are through need. I totally get and understand, but when we consider the vision of our district, and we want to ensure that the key elements are met of that, that we as a community, we all can enjoy a health and safety lifestyle. Our communities are vibrant and welcoming. Leaders are effective, informed and inclusive. And our environment is clean, green and valued. Our economy is also an economy that is thriving. But to ensure affordability for ratepayers, we may need to look at some of these things very carefully to ensure that the services are effective also, and just identifying how we would approach that in terms of our in terms of the community, and to ensure that council's vision is achieved through not only the organisational mission, but that our communities are provided with the best value service, by implementing great plans, by making changes and reviews to significant policies that may need to be reviewed.
Okay, Kelton.
I mean, it might sound harsh, but rates is a game of be careful of what you ask for sometimes. It's a pain that we all suffer, I'm sure. I'm no different to any other person, I think, in the Māori community. I can hardly afford to pay my rates. So over the years, it's an interest that I've had, that our forefathers have always championed, how Māori are rated, sometimes rated off their land. So I, as part of my 100-day plan, is exactly that, to instigate a rates review on Māori rates, on rating on Māori land, and interrogate the formula that a council uses, and challenge the council how they come about those equations and justify the rates they charge Māori. Because you'll find that under the Local Government Act, most or all councils are required to have a separate Māori rates department. Department, not person, and our council never has. So I've become skilled in how they equate Māori rates, and I am very confident by leading by example that I can reevaluate Māori land through the council if I had the opportunity, and reduce the rates on a lot of Māori land, not all Māori land, but there's a formula that's justified, and a lot of councils have got a lot of learning to do around the need to consult the Te Ture Whenua Act when it comes to rating Māori land, whether that's any general land owned by Māori. The Act requires that it's treated like Māori freehold land under the Te Ture Whenua Act, and that's where the council calculations go wrong, because they quite often don't have that knowledge around the different legislations. When it comes to general rates for the wider community, that's another ballpark, but it's about trading off those big infrastructure items that we need, like wastewater, stormwater, the three waters, and what that costs our people in rates. But it's something we need, those big ticket items, as opposed to the special things in life for our communities, like parks, reserves, footpaths, cycleways, all of those other lovely things that communities champion, but don't realise. Like I said, be careful what you ask for. How is the council going to pay for that? And what will we be charged for what we asked for? It's a real fine line, but we can make some savings. And if you've been around the council trappings lately, like I know my colleagues have been, and listening to it all from our council, one of the biggest expenses that contributes to rates in our council is the actually running the council, and then not so prudent financial accountability. We've heard it from the horse's mouth around rates. So I think there's some movement we can do before our councils are forced to do a rate capping exercise by this government. We need to knuckle down.
Okay, Soiree.
I've got a real simple understanding of rates, and butter's $9 in our country of New Zealand that has 6 million sheep, that has 6 million animals specifically set up for dairy if you take the Stats New Zealand numbers. So I'm saying, and I've opted and been deliberate in not signing anyone's rate pledge. Like the other two, I believe it's in prudent decision making of the councillors, and it's their responsibility to act with integrity and competence about where you have to find where you have to find savings on council. So I'm not au fait with the details of budgets, but as a group of decision makers, I think we need to pay close attention to bottom line. And again, what Carlton was referring to, there's worlds within worlds when it comes to rates. So Māori land versus general land, definitely be advocating for looking at that, because the price of living is affecting everybody. But I just think it is the whole cost, the cost of living, cost of dying has gone up. I don't think that you would be wise to even hold that you can keep rates where they are at their current. And have they ever been affordable? I think they're really just, everyone experiences them as yet another tax on something that I'm meant to own. And as I said, I've been here 125 years. I'm not sure when you became the person that I owed money to, given that I was the landowner before you even arrived. 1900, the house was built in 1900. There you go.
Okay, we've passed 8 o'clock, so let's get on to hard-hitting question number 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. I want to make sure that I read a lot better than reading it on the smartphone screen. Hard-hitting question number 1. How would you celebrate and protect local Māori history and sites of significance in council planning? Carlton.
A lot of us may have heard about the adoption of spatial planning. So this is one angle. I've always promoted spatial planning because I understood it. And if it's done the right way, you can spatial plan to protect those sites of significance, which are Māori history in themselves, through spatial planning, better spatial planning done in the right way. We know this government is demanding that our councils come up with more land, buildable land. And where else are they going to look apart from our the remaining sites of significance to Māori? Or our farmer neighbour who might decide to put his rural farm up for development. It's a dangerous proposition, just looking for more affordable, buildable land. And the realisation by councils that Māori, by default, have provided all of our sub-regional parks, all of our regional parks are historical sites of significance to Māori, like Mowal, like Panipani, out Eastern Bay. Yeah, all of our Māori iwi hapu whānau know that our people have provided those spaces for the wider community to enjoy. So it's, and we as Māori, we keep offering up those spaces to our wider community to enjoy. And part of that is because it attracts mechanisms to protect them by sharing them. So it's something that our people have always done. And there are, it's about, again, it's a lot of education with the community and council themselves, and just trying to find whether it's funding, whether it's policy development, to further protect those sites of significance, and which in this country are of all of Māori history.
Okay. Soiree.
Yeah. So again, I think Carlton's points are exactly what I would weave in as well. But I think the actual one of the key strong moves here is to look at what council planning actually looks like as a discipline. So you can go to university, you can study planning and town planning. And if that isn't seeded in the right direction from the beginning, from the genesis of the career path, then what you're going to get is people who arrive as town planners for Beko or whatever they're called, Beka, Boko, who cares, those people, and then they have a revelation, and then they have to backfill their kete and understanding about what council planning means in the context of Māori landscapes, right? So protecting our history, protecting our sites of significance. And again, it's a huge action to raise awareness and knowledge and skills of professionals to understand what it means to be engaging with iwi Māori as well as marae Māori and hapu Māori. Yes, we're definitely from the same whakapapa, but you have different obligations to them. The council has a statutory obligation to deal with iwi. It doesn't have a statutory obligation to deal with hapu or marae, but the iwi wouldn't cut out hapu or marae. So yeah, I think it's a training and development perspective. So train the workforce, train the people who become planners, but then also ensure that the council staff who are the interfaces to these things on the operations, on the way it lands on the ground, to understand, let hapu lead those things and ensure that iwi are along to help those decisions.
Okay, Darlene.
Okay. For me, I support all that Sarari and Carlton have already conveyed. But I would be, or I would be, a strong advocate for the protection of our heritage and the sites of significance. For me, they're a matter of national importance. And as iwi and hapu, we are the balance in everything at all times. And I guess through influencing these spatial plan decisions or any planning decisions, influencing through the significance policy to enable that, and taking into consideration when we talk about essential and non-essential and those services, our heritage and significant sites of significance are essential. So therefore, I would probably look at reducing non-essential to ensure that our sites of significance and our history are planned for in all of our council documents.
Okay, so let's get on to hard-hitting question number 2. How will you support Māori communities, particularly coastal and rural areas, to prepare for and adapt to the impacts of climate change? Sware.
Oh, this is a good question, and I think so through the work that the iwi does in finding money for marae improvements, climate change and emergency management stuff is kind of like the snowball here to get our people organised around what things they can do to adjust or to adapt to changing environments. So when we think about climate change, the long tail of that is the weather-related impact that we see across the country. And I think Māori and the communities via their marae become really good vessels for increasing knowledge, skills and awareness of that community in terms of how would they cope, what services could they provide immediately to support their community. Do they have the energy systems in place, batteries, solar power, those kind of things are conversations that Māori communities are already being woven really, really well into, actually. Specifically in my own iwi, there are discussions around making sure that our marae are up to date and fit for purpose on those things. And then there's also the idea of just taking it to the community, doing what I call bus stop workshops where we go over the issues. And again, you only really hold 50% of the story. You have to go to a community and ask them as a baseline where they are and what they think this issue is and how it might affect them. If you don't do that, then you're just going to be throwing information at them, but not raising their awareness or skill in how to deal with that.
Okay, Darlene.
Okay. This issue is not a new issue. And as an example, this is a coastal village community, Makatu. So Te Runanga o Ngāti Whakaue, they did a really in-depth and won an award for their climate change and adaptation plan. That plan credited to Roana and Alva Conroy, Roana Bennett and Alva Conroy and the team. It has highlighted a lot of issues and a lot of work that needs to be done in that area. The key, I guess, would be how we engage to ensure that our communities receive all of these. I agree with Sarari. Most of our marae are emergency ready and have been activated in the past during COVID, during some storm events. They were stood up as emergency civil defence areas. And yeah, it's climate change. It affects us all. It's not just the coastal and rural communities. I mean, it affects our awa and our ngahere that we have in our hapu and iwi areas. So yeah, it would be more to be there to support them, to ensure that they are ready for the impacts of civil defence, emergencies, and climate change.
Okay, Carlton.
Yeah. Again, it's an arena that I'm passionate about. It's not all about getting our people ready. It's actually a fact of life that our people, Māori people, are resilient in themselves and have had to adapt to change, including climate change, that governments, councils refused for many, many years was even happening. There's still that non-belief in the effects of climate change worldwide. But our people are good at that. And our people have a lot of teaching the wider community, teaching the governments, teaching local government about that. Unfortunately, I think if I go back through my grey hairs, around the 90s, I think it was, our regional council who held that regulatory responsibility to adapt to climate change or protect communities against climate change took the name environment out of their council name, regional council. Ever since then, they have had no policy, no funding, no targeted rate around this type of thing. That needs to be brought back to the council tables. But it's no one entity, one council is going to provide for this in their own right. It has to be a multi-agency approach, adapting to the effects of climate change and disaster. And that includes the agency of our iwi and hapu, as Soare said. First thing I would like to do is actually ensure that all of our marae and hapu whānau have disaster response plans, and that they have readiness and response plans, all developed by the people for the people to protect our marae, our communities, and our wider community. As Soare said, our marae have been used as civil defence disaster response bases before. They will be used again. So it's about protecting our own communities from the inside out. Then the wider environment. Climate change is affecting us from the mountains to the sea. Māori, again, have lived, they are a people from the mountains to the sea. Rena taught us a lot about being ready for disaster response. I was heavily involved in that. But one thing I learned, the biggest thing I learned, was our people are so resilient and so good at this because we've had to be. We've got our people, our marae could teach our councils and councillors a lot about this, and we need to be resourced to get it done and future-proof our environment. All of our urupa, our sites of significance, our marae, places like Matakana, Panipani are falling in the ocean as a result of climate change, erosion. We need to get that issue smack bang in the middle, back on council tables, but there's a lot that iwi hapu can contribute. Not again, we're not that type of people, not just for us as Māori, but we do live a nucleus life inside a wider community that actually rely. I know our community relies on our marae in those types of situations, our wider non-Māori community. So it's taking us all on that journey, multi-agency approach to it.
Okay, let's get on to hard-hitting question number 3. What is your position on retaining Western Bay of Plenty District Council's Waka district-wide Māori ward and the Bay of Plenty Regional Council? Excuse me if I pronounce it wrong, but I think it's Māori constituency. Okay, Māori constituency, and why do you hold that position? Darlene.
Okay, my position is clear. Retain Waka Kaiuru and the Moa Māori constituency ward. Why? As an act of good faith and meaningful partnership that are supported by the principles held within Te Tiriti o Waitangi, 1840, and the Declaration of Independence, 1835, the Māori Land Act, Te Ture Whenua, 1993, and the Resource Management Act, 1991, and Local Government, 2020. Kia ora.
Kelton.
The regional council Māori seats are actually protected under a different legislation. So there's less threat. They don't have the right for referendum on them. But with the Waka Kaiuru seat, sort of as Darling has alluded to, it's a right, it's a derivative of the treaty, of treaty principles, of legislation, where local government, central government, have a liability to provide representation, places for representation at a decision-making level. They can't carry on, as some councillors have mooted over this election cycle and this campaign, that we already have a Māori forum, and they're lovely, our Māori forum. This is the rhetoric of councillors who don't actually support Māori wards, that we already have a Māori forum. Why do we need a Māori ward? We have a right to representation. We are a unique community recognised under the Local Government Act. The Local Government Act provides or representation requires that all communities have a right to representation at the council table. It's not a privilege, as the propaganda out there keeps telling the country. It's a right. It's to be protected, but unfortunately it becomes a choice by councils to support one or not. And then there is a race-based policy or piece of legislation that gives the wider community, the wider country, to hold a referendum against maintaining or establishing Māori wards. And if people actually look at that piece of legislation, that is the race-based piece of legislation, which is culturally biased and is actually conflicts with the rest of the Local Government Act. So we will carry on trying to protect these spaces. And one day, might be the next government might have an epiphany, as like Nanaia Mahuta did, who removed that piece of legislation and that race-based right to hold a referendum against Māori wards, conflicting and culturally biased piece of legislation, which has been reintroduced by this biased coalition. So all I can say is that I totally support the retention of Māori ward seats. along with the right our non-Māori communities have to have a ward like the Kaimai ward. It's a right developed by those communities. It's not Māori's fault that we, because of raupatu being rated off our land being taken under the Public Works Act, that we now have to be peppered across the district to find somewhere to live, where other communities, more wealthy, say like Omokoro, can all afford to live there, become a community in their own right, and therefore under legislation have a right to have a ward and a council seat at the table. Those rights actually exist for Māori communities too, but people like to deny it. So we just carry on fighting the fight, and I'm sure all three of us will carry on doing that, whether we are successful in this election or not.
Okay, soiree.
You're on mute.
Absolutely, like the other two. I love Darlene's intro. My view is absolutely clear. I absolutely hold the position that we should retain the Western Bay of Plenty District Council's Waka Kaiuru ward, as well as the seat on the Māori constituency on the regional council. And I hold that position in a really simple way, because for me, Māori representation is a constitutional issue. It is as constitutional as Americans with their belief to take arms and freedom of speech, which is quite topical at the minute. So I hold the view that Māori have and have always had a constitutional right to representation that has been blindfolded, handcuffed, run over, reversed back over again, and then run over some more in the execution of the Westminster model of government. So through that obliteration of our constitutional right, you will have these whirlpools, you will have these collisions as we land what that looks like. But on the positive side, because I am a positive person, I believe in open-mindedness and leading with empathy and skill. On the upside, this is the model for how we show everybody that New Zealand's democracy can work, and that it doesn't pit interests against other people's interests. It allows everybody to participate and contribute to the type of community and society that we want to live in.
Okay, thank you for that. Now let's get to closing statements. Carlton, you get to go first with 1 minute of why the mind blank's going to come here. Waka Kaora voters can give you their tick.
Again, it's always hard to talk about yourself, but I'm just going to say it. I have had a long career in representing Māori in these spaces. I'm so passionate about taking this seat, because what it does is elevate my history of success and representation for Māori into this arena. I know how I have the skills. I know I have the influence to achieve what Māori want from this seat, and I'm all about that. I have a track record. You can be assured, if you vote for me, that achievement, is my number one goal, is to achieving our Māori community's aspirations in the seat, including the taiao, including our marae, our iwi hapu, all of those things that our Māori communities are passionate about, our culture, our mana, and our rights and interests under Te Riti o Waitangi. I'm so passionate about exercising my skills that have been honed over years for this seat. Kia ora.
Okay. All right.
Oh, my very short story is I would love the mandate and actively seek the mandate of my people to represent them in this forum at this local government council table. I have it in my books that we will not retain the seat. I believe that we will lose the seat through the referendum because the Western Bay of Plenty is the home of the Hobson's Pledge. And I'm willing, well, I was always going into this table with my 100-day plan includes developing a performance monitoring framework over all the decisions that the council makes for the 3 years that I serve my constituents at the table. And that'll be a 3-year research and evaluation project when we can actually look at how council makes decisions and to what benefit they are for Māori communities. Again, I will always stand out of an obligation and a responsibility to good democracy, to supporting wahine into governance, and also to recognise the outstanding contribution of whakapapa that my family have made to the Western Bay of Plenty. When I stand up in a room and if I asked anybody else in that room, if anybody else has lived in their house on the same road, on the same street for 125 years, I'm going to be alone. That's not the approach I'll take to working for you at the council table, but it is what I stand on because I have an obligation to represent this whakapapa because nōku tēnei whenua, ake.
Okay. And Darlene.
Well, for me, I want to support decisions that work for both iwi a hapu and tangata tiriti. Not just now, and for our generations to come, to ensure that te ao Māori tikanga and kawa are key functions of that decision making as well, and that the principles, and I've mentioned it earlier, of natural justice applied. I believe in fair, honest and respectful leadership and a true partnership, not just as an act of good faith, but because that's what we were put there to do. And just in closing, me tika, me mihi kia korua, Sarari korua ko Carlton. E tika ana me mihi kia korua, kia mata katoa, kia tātou. I tū, I rongo, I aro ki ngā kōrero o ngā hapuri. And for me, I really want to thank the communities that encouraged me to stand and supported me. And the debates that took place along the way. But it was encouraging, it's challenging, and I stand to advocate for our people and to champion and for the protection of our environment, working alongside our hapu, iwi, and of course our staff. Also, just knowing that supported in manaakitanga, kaitiakitanga and kotahitanga. So, mā te mahi ngā tahi, ka ia. Kia ora rā.
Kia ora, darling.
And thank you so much for coming tonight to do a remote It's in the Ballot show for the, was it Waka Uru voters? It's not easy sitting there doing it, but thank you so much for participating. And for those out there, make sure you get out and vote. Any final wishes you want to do before I hit end stream?
I just encourage all of our people out there to get out there and vote. Get out there and vote for who you want to vote for. Very important.
Tautoko. Ngā mihi anō. Ai.
Well, thank you for that. And we'll be, it's in the ballot, will be coming live from Kawerau tomorrow for their 3 councillor races and 1 mayoral race. So we'll see you all from 11, 1, 4 and 7 p.m. tomorrow. So wish everyone a good evening.
Kia ora. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank